Angel, it is really good to see you here in Valencia. I want to first start by congratulating you on becoming a fellow. I've got a couple of questions. Was it worth all the years of work? And was it a surprise?
Let me start with the second one. Yes, absolutely, not a clue. So I'm very honored. It was absolutely worth the work. Although, again, I didn't do it for that. I'm very much, I only do things I believe in, right? And I'm very stubborn. So I've been working at this for a long time, as you know, 20 years almost now. And I really do. I think that this is the only way that we can all work together, right? And there's, as I was saying earlier, I mean, when I think about what our competition is, it's Excel, right? Like, we're working against people who haven't yet reached the highest level of maturity that we have already, right? So it's not about whether we're competing with other people here. We're actually collaborating to bring the industry up to a higher level.
Yeah. There's a real sense that we are making progress here, and I think that's really heartening, but there still feels like there's a long way to go. But I think that's why we're all passionate about what we do. But I was really interested in the story you told on day one when you talked a bit about the journey you'd made, not only with buildingSMART, but sort of Revit journey as well, which is obviously has a huge user base, which is dependent on, you know, open standards, open BIM, and providing the best possible, you know, use cases for your customers, and I was really interested in that. So maybe you could just explain a bit more about some of the things you talked about on day one.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Revit does a lot, right? It covers a lot of the workflow, but it will never cover everything. It's always going to be part of a larger ecosystem that's not just Autodesk. And we don't want to be everything, right? So how do we get along? So yeah, so I've been thinking about this for years. Like, again, what do we do to make sure that we operate better with others? But was there anything in particular that captured you?
Well, I think it's really, it was the journey slide you shared, because I think we can all relate to our own experiences about how we've contributed to things through a journey.
Right.
And what that means. And when you're aligned to a product for so long, you have this really retrospective view of how that is seen. And certainly with buildingSMART as well, I think it's interesting. And I often wonder about going back to the first days of when they kicked this off, and I know Autodesk were part of that.
Right.
They probably never imagined that in 2024 we would still be struggling with the same points. You talked about Excel, right? So when I see those timelines, I'm sometimes a bit surprised that as an industry we haven't made the progress we should have done. And there are probably lots of reasons behind it. But yeah, I guess that was what came to my mind when I saw it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the joke I made, which is true, is when I started working in IFC, I thought, okay, well, this is what I'll be working on for the next 3 to 6 months. What will I do after that?
Right.
And of course, IFC is not the only thing I've worked on for the last 20 years, but it is definitely the primary thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, well, if we were still solving the same problem from 20 years ago, I think it'd be a little sad to say, wow, how long has it taken us? But the problem also shifts over time, right? The world has changed in 20 years. Yeah. Like, that first implementation of Revit was IFC 2X2. Right? And that, fortunately, has been obsoleted. IFC 2X3 is still going strong. But we're solving different problems now. We have a climate to worry about. We had a climate to worry about before, too, but it feels like, you know, we're thinking about that more, right? And so we have different problems to solve, and so our open solutions evolve with that. So it is a moving target. So fortunately, we're not solving all the same problems as before. Although you're right that some of them do seem very familiar over time.
Yeah, I think you're right when you start to dig down into this. The problems have to be there for us to try to solve them, because that's the nature of the work that we do, and it's fragmented and it's complex in our industry. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth. I guess I was wondering, because you have had such a great long history in the development of IFC and you've supported it so well, where do you see this going? I mean, we talk a lot about IFC 5 and APIs and more of a modular approach to how we would do this. Where do you see this journey taking us, and particularly around interoperability of things, the standards that we're developing?
Right. Well, I mean, I do really think that the future is not just about open data, but open access to data, right? So right now, we're in a transition. We're in a transition from a file-based society, right? Where you have large monolithic data federated models that we transfer. But really, kind of moving forward, if we want to collaborate more quickly, more efficiently, we need to be thinking about what are small chunks of data that we pass back and forth
Yeah.
and can, work on together.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think the promise of IFC5 is.
Yeah.
How do we take 30 years of
Right.
knowledge,
Yeah.
right? We can't throw that away.
No.
There's too much good there.
Yeah.
But how do we modernize it for a cloud society, a granular society, and really get that
Yeah.
moving?
I guess it's a choice we've got to make. We've got a couple of roads to take, which has been an analogy that's been used here, but yet we can't lose the good experience and work that we've developed because that's invaluable. And someone actually mentioned in an earlier session that one of the greatest inventions for humanity was IFC because it's given us this level playing field with standardization.
Right. Right. Standardize and innovate is what really I talk about, right? So we need to keep the standardization. But again, like, how do we get tunnels sooner, right? How do we allow to get that information into our open ecosystem without having to wait years to figure it all out, right? We can actually be playing with it as we figure it out. So,
well, look, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you for Autodesk for being so open with us and supportive of our industry, and thank you to you for all your good work, and I look forward to seeing you at the next summit.
well, thank you, and thank you for this wonderful conference and for everything you do to make sure that we have this open BIM to work in that environment.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angel.
Thank you.